way, I would assert that a narrative is a good way to do that. So let's say that there's this place where we don't, this place of mystery. It's far from where we were born. The conditions are quite different. It's not very well mapped. We're not sure what's out there, but we could imagine, and usually it's true, that there is potential out there. There's maybe even some treasure, almost certainly some treasure if you can figure out how to get there. And there's probably some danger and some risk and some there's something scary and potentially even dangerous out there about which we don't know very much. And so maybe we tell a lot of narratives about, we write on our map at the edge of the known world, we write, "There be dragons there." And we kind of are intrigued to go there, and on the other hand, we're pretty scared to go there. And some people get the explorer bug and they go off there, and some of them never return because the danger for them was more real than the treasure. And once in a while, somebody comes back from there and they have more information, and maybe they bring something valuable with them, and they have treasure, and they survived the experience, and we call those people heroes, and we write like big mythic epic stories about them. And that's been happening probably for a really long time, since the circle of the unknown was very small, and now knowledge is increased and the circle of the unknown might be widened out further from our immediate area. And the accumulation of that knowledge might mean that there's less unknown, and we keep pushing forward to learn even more. We use the scientific method and so on. God's been talking to humans for a really long time, since the circle of the unknown was probably pretty small. I would argue that it was probably pretty big when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden and had not yet made a bad choice, and when God came and communed with them in the evening, they probably had access to a lot of information and could know a lot. And then they fell, and that resulted in some really bad consequences to them, as outlined in Genesis, having to do with the sweat of their brow and pain in labor, in childbirth, and then they got their seed got really got corrupt, and there was lots of there wasn't respect for the Creator, or frankly for the createds, and there was war, and there was the conditions described before Noah, before the great flood, and there was almost no redeeming anything left, and there was one man whose family house was pretty well put together, and he built an ark and became this way that the world was saved. And then we lived in this earth returning from a huge shakeup and a massive conflagration and a flood that was very, very lightly populated. Man, I would argue that by then the circle of the unknown was huge, and the circle of the known had really contracted in on people. And God's trying to talk to people this whole time. He's trying to talk through Noah to a bunch of people, none of whom seem to actually be convinced. And then afterward, we really do see we see a narrative where we see a pretty unpopulated and immense earth. Even the story of Abraham sounds like there's a lot of space out there. Like, you can leave your father's and mother's civilization and go find a place, and it's probably beyond that veil of the known and unknown, and there's probably opportunity and danger out there. But it doesn't sound like it's so densely populated that everything's claimed, that all the opportunities are taken by humans. And then we even hear about overpopulation. We hear about Abraham and Lot. You know, it's getting a little too crowded here. We better split up and go find some new territory, because our servants are kind of stepping on your servants. We really do see a narrative in the Bible that is consistent with a depopulation and then an exploration and repopulation. And people in all of those phases had their own tolerance for abstraction and their own priority on the concrete and on survival and on avoiding the dangers and finding the opportunities. And God, in that process, God needed to find a way to speak to people. God dearly wanted to find a way because he loved us, and he knew that if we didn't have his voice, everything was lost. We couldn't survive. Everything good comes from God, and he needed to talk to us and wanted to talk to us because he loved us. And we probably, much of the time, weren't even sophisticated enough to know that we should be listening. And probably we may still have that fault or that weakness. And so, trying to make the abstract into concrete for people who had a really concrete mindset, maybe illusions and images and allegories and parables and symbols were